Today, we're going to talk about psychedelics, collab about psychedelics, and why they occur in nature. And what was your topic again?
My topic was, why are we, kind of like a two-part, why are we able to experience those psychedelic trips, and what does it have to say about reality itself?
So, I guess I'm just going to start off with my end here. Basically, psychedelics, I feel like they occur in nature because, it's hard to explain. I've been taking a Buddhism class.
Yeah, it is.
And, the Buddha taught a lot about the universe and what it's like and how there's 6 realms and all these sentient beings that exist. And to understand the universe, it's like, okay, like we have all these sentient beings, all these realms probably, but I feel like we are on a lower realm, and what we're doing here is we're connecting to the natural world and like a physical body that we can perceive, and psychedelics are there to connect us to the other higher realms per se. I don't know how else to say it, but psychedelics, they connect us to something that we couldn't previously see before. And but
have you personally experienced those sort, like when you get into those states?
No, but the thing is, the reason why I wanted to say it like that was because I know for a fact that it's reality breaking down in some type of way, because on like those higher, the most intense dose I've ever had, the most intense trip, it was fucking insane. Just you have no sense of depth perception whatsoever. You have lost track of time. We were there for maybe 4 hours, felt like a couple years.
Yeah.
And we had some sense of time, but it was like the bare minimum sense of time you could have. It was just, you couldn't control yourself. It's like you lose grasp of who you are, where you are, what you're doing, why you're there. That's pretty much, like, I kind of like got off topic a little bit, didn't I?
No, you're good, but honestly, it seems more so like you're saying, why are these trips the way they are?
Yes.
More so than why are they in nature, you know?
Well, yeah, but what I think what I was trying to say though was that it's reality breaking down. So all these like doses that were less intense than my most intense dose, reality is like, you still see it breaking down. That's why you have like these patterns and colorizations, and you have them like kind of like mingling together even at the lower doses of psychedelics. And it's just like, the reason why it's happening is because, I'm not even talking about nature at this point, but the reason why it's happening is because it's breaking down. Once you get to those higher doses, you start seeing more patterns, because you're just seeing all the matter in front of you in the universe that you perceive physically just disappearing and mingling with each other, because the way we see it is through like the only way we can see it, if that makes any sense. We can only perceive.
Do you have to have a I don't want to call it intention, but like a background knowledge of what you were describing, this cast basically of planes or realms? I don't remember exactly what you said, but basically what I'm saying is, could anybody find themselves raising in these realms that you were describing?
Yeah.
Even without knowing about it?
I think you can, but I don't know. There's something out there that we don't know about. And even like at high doses, some high doses like 6-7 grams, you're still not really completely in those realms, but it's like really broken down. Like on my 3rd gram dose, or like my first dose, it was like patterns and stuff everywhere. But like at these higher doses, what's happening is it's all coming together, and eventually I feel like you go through this, like, I don't know how to explain, like a barrier almost between this realm and the next, or this dimension or the next, or whatever you want to call it. It just feels like I don't know what certain point or how many grams you have to take or how intense it has to be, or what substance even, but at some point, if it's intense enough and everything's just breaking down, you cross
the breakthrough experience.
You cross through like one dimensional realm, and then it's even more intense, and you have less of a sense of ego, which is what a breakthrough probably is. To be honest, this breakthrough experience has to be the really high doses where you have either you have a complete ego death, or you're at an ego dissolution.
I was thinking of looking at, like, from my point of view, like a simpler perspective. For me, it's kind of like nature is like pure, and like the humans are like the only species that really kind of harm nature. But when you're a child, you're like the most pure, and when you're taking shrooms, it's like you feel like a child. Like, I swear, before I even do shrooms, like the weeks leading up to it, it's like I'm looking forward to it as if it's a holiday, like I'm a kid, like just looking up to like a shroom strip or just psychedelics in general. And I don't know, I think it just tells us, like, be pure, because like people are so like caught up in these, you know, extra thoughts, and they're so distracted. Like, nature opened me up to, psychedelics opened me up to nature. And I don't know, it just like taught me to live pure and like live with respect for nature. So I don't know if it's like, it puts you in like this childhood state of mind, kind of.
I mean,
is that the extent of what you have to say about that?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not saying it's like you're wrong. I'm saying I'm looking at it from like a simpler perspective.
Yeah, he's looking at it from like
some differing perspectives here as well that I actually want to share.
All right, you go ahead.
If you had something to say.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, because I was comparing it to almost like they're here to connect us to this breakthrough worlds.
Yeah.
But like I was saying earlier, it's like, if you're not a high enough dose, all you see is your third dimensional world, like kind of like collapsing on itself. That's basically what's happening. So when you get to those higher doses, you're seeing like the entire universe in this breakthrough. So what he was trying to say is that it makes you feel pure, and I think that's because we're so out of touch with reality that we don't get to experience the natural world. We don't know how to be present in the moment.
So many people like work and die and are just like fine with that almost. I mean, they don't, that's not what they want to do, but they just like don't treat every day like it's another day to be here.
Yeah. Like at those lower doses, you realize like the physical like insignificance and significance of things, like both. And you are able to like realize like from like an objective perspective instead of in a subjective perspective, because you're always thinking about yourself, that no matter what dose you're out in shrooms, you kind of have a little bit of a sense of self kind of like dissolve, just a little bit, not too much if you're at a lower dose, but just a little bit,
right,
where you know what's happening still and everything, but like you're viewing things objectively, so you feel pure. You're like, wow, like I need to get outside more often, I need to treat my relationships better, I need to work harder. I see these people are sad. How can you be that sad? Like, yeah, I mean, that's basically what I had to say.
I'm gonna touch on the what I have to say about why they occur in nature, but for some reason this is just coming to me. But the idea of the breakthrough experience where you fully merge, or you know what I consider it to be is where you, I mean, essentially, merge with it, but it's this sense of just going into it. You're taken into this scenario or experience going on, and you said you guys have had some pretty bizarre psychedelic experiences, and I don't know about you, but something in there feels very natural.
Oh, yeah.
Very primal, you know what I mean? And it's almost like at first, you may just be high, but those realms where you're talking about, which I really think are just when you are breaking through into where the psychedelic is becoming more so what's happening than your personification of what's happening, and it seems to bring you in a sort of loop back to naturality in a way, like I'm talking specifically about DMT breakthroughs, but it seems to be
But I mean,
conveying. What's that?
oh, I was gonna say, but like even then, like with just doing shrooms, I felt so primal. I think it's because DMT and shrooms are natural. LSD is a synthetic compound. Like people don't remember that sometimes, and it's just it's kind of
LSD has given me the most intense ego death of my life compared to DMT and shrooms, in my experience.
yeah. See, I mean, we never. I don't think we've ever even had like a real like powerful tab of LSD, anyway. So we couldn't like really speak on that. But I mean, LSD. The few times or at least the one time I know it was probably for sure LSD. I didn't really connect with nature that much.
Oh yeah, it wasn't intense, but like still, yeah, I never felt like the same connection to nature that I got with shrooms.
It was more like this, like when it was cooler to close your eyes and see all the patterns, and easier in fact than when I'm on shrooms. Like when I'm on shrooms, I want to see like trees and greenery and shit like that.
Do you think that's potentially related to the understanding that this one was made by man and this one grows in the woods? Or do you think it's objectively in the experience that LSD doesn't connect you with nature more so than the mushrooms?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be a little bit of both, but at the same time, I see it objectively. I'm just like I've seen other people talk about like, oh, LSD is more like an adventure and it's easier to close your eyes and like think about space and like the outwards of the universe and shit. I mean,
Terence Mckenna described LSD as a personality thing rather than a psychedelic, which is kind of interesting because I think I know what he's talking about, that, you know, LSD doesn't bring about dimensions and realms and beings, you know, the way DMT or a high dose of mushrooms would. But let me say, I don't know if you guys have watched my natural versus synthetic video, but I'm under the impression that everything is natural. You can't escape nature. You are nature. A guy standing in a lab with a coat and a fucking, you know, all these chemicals, with thinking he's this guy creating man-made things. Who's to say that's not the universe using him to expand itself? Now, with that said, my experiences with LSD. My experiences with LSD. Oops.
It's funny how philosophical we get. Oh boy.
They seem to show the life in everything. Everything is alive, and it's a description word, of course, alive, but it shows you that everything is happening. Everything is, you know, always going on, as well as you, and you're always ignoring it. You're always ignoring the world, the natural world. And like I said, this is just my experience, but being able to look through the concept that it's synthetic, I am able to see such a teaching about this world and myself through it. You know what I mean? And I'm not per se analyzing the experience in a synthetic way rather than a natural way. You know what I mean?
I think I understand what you're saying, because what you're saying is like they're both different, but you think like people
sure
have this stigma about, like, they're both different in terms of experience, but people have this stigma about LSD that, oh, it's synthetic. But you treat it like the way you treat it, then you're probably not going to have the same feeling or experience as shrooms, but you have an even more profound one, because it's still a chemical that exists somewhere in the universe. So
exactly,
we're not even
that's
making it.
Really the thing.
You're just combining chemicals that already exist that we can physically use on this earth only.
Everything starts from nature, so
exactly. It's just this. All it is, the idea of something being man-made, in my opinion, is an idea in your head. You know, man-made. You know, man-made substance, but in reality, substance made man. You know, You are it, like Alan Watts always says. But to dial it back into why they occur in nature, I kind of have a few different takes, and that's because I don't like to take a certain path and believe in a certain thing and you know, settle down. But the first one's kind of, you know, it may seem diminishing and not as divine as some of the other ways of looking at why they're in nature, but the roles they play in preservation and evolution of the ecosystem, you know? And this doesn't even mean being ingested and experiencing the psychedelic states of it. This just means, you know, plants and fungi do a shitload of work in nature. You know, and I even tried doing some research into what cacti do for the environment, but there wasn't much on that. But we can all agree that plants and fungi are very major roles in nature and the food chain and the balance and homeostasis of the ecosystem. And I haven't done direct research into it, but who's to say these psychoactive psychedelic components in the natural psychedelics does serve some sort of role in continuing itself or where it is?
Continuing it into other dimensions, like I was talking about, right? Like nature continuing, like it exists there. The reason we have all these sophisticated, like biological plants and whatever, or organisms, and then you had the psychedelic that was there. There had to be some type of beginning for us to be able to go through evolution and discover these mind-altering substances that connect us to the higher parts of the universe, I guess.
I guess I could describe it as they're trying to sustain the dimension they're in now. And like I said, this is just one of the outlooks and doesn't necessarily involve ingesting and perceiving the psychedelic experience.
What do you mean by sustain? Like protect, or like?
Yes. And I guess in a way, preservation and evolution of not only itself, but the environment it's a part of, you know. And this leads me into my next point, which does involve directly ingesting the natural psychedelics. They're catalysts for dormant consciousness. Meaning, roughly the Stoned Ape Theory, that what happens when a form of life habitually or routinely ingests psychedelic plants or fungi and are having this experience that, you know, we know happens when you take them. What does that do to the consciousness of that life over time if they come to add it to their diet? Basically, how do you account for primates that were eating psychedelic plants and mushrooms and tripping balls and potentially doing it often? You know, what does that do to consciousness over time and evolution? And imagine if it was a civilization or, you know, family of primates that, not knowing it, but were ritualistically doing it all the time, you know what I mean? Because the founder or creator of the Stoned Ape Theory, Terence Mckenna, talks about the three different aspects it has in catalyzing consciousness. In low doses, it increases your visual acuity and your sense of movement. You can see things move way quicker and more enhanced than you would if you were sober. And this accounts for hunting and being able to get the prey easier, see where the prey is, smell them better even, be able to sit and watch and see the movement of the prey. You take a little bit more of the mushrooms or the plant, and now you have this stimulation. You know, if you take a, you know, kind of bunk dose of something, you just feel this energy, you know, and it's just this arousal, as he describes it. That restless energy in those kind of beings would lead to something like wanting to have sex to get rid of that energy. And that accounts for reproducing. You take a little bit more of the mushrooms or the plant, and now you're having this ecstatic experience, this dimension dissolving experience that you were speaking of. What does that do to the mind of these beings over time in terms of survival and literal psychology, self-awareness, you know? And that's what makes me say they could be catalysts of dormant consciousness, which is basically just non-self-aware spirit, like all other life forms besides humans. And this idea, the idea behind it is that we are the ones who took psychedelic plants and fungi into our diet, and that's why we are the way we are: self-aware, intelligent, you know, articulate. And it's a really interesting take, in my opinion, and I would say it's probably up there in one of the, you know, where I'd lean as to why they could be in nature is to, you know, wake us up, wake life up to itself.
Evolve,
you know?
too, yeah.
What's that?
Way to it's a way to evolve.
Mm-hmm. But not even in like a survival way anymore, you know, like more so getting on with it, you know, seeing what else is going on. And that may bring in the realms, the different realms that you were talking about, the other stuff that's going on when you take a breakthrough dose of a psychedelic, you know?
There has to be... See, okay. There's 6 realms, like, you have a higher realm, all these sentient beings that live everywhere. But does that mean there's also, like, aliens that are in our dimension that aren't from this planet?
I love that you just said that, because that's my other thought on why they're in nature. And this is just the idea. What natural psychedelics are and why they're there is actually another intelligent life form like us, like kind of like what we've become, but way more fucking complex. If you've seen what they can do, these psychedelics, it's an intelligent life form trying to communicate through nature, you know, not through technology, not through media. It's using the raw foundational ways of reality to communicate with you.
So
And
you're
this
talking
could-
about...
This could be a life form that's, you know, in another galaxy or in another plane.
So
not even available in this entire fucking universe, but they're communicating through our root of existence.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, like, they're so powerful, so intelligent that they're able to, like, they already know we're here, they already know what we're doing, all this shit, that they were able to create a life form on our planet in order to communicate to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking
I want
crazy.
to quote Terence McKenna. He says, and this is paraphrased, but he says, the best way for an alien to observe a human being without blowing its mind and exposing itself would be to hide itself inside of a state of intoxication. Because when you're in a state of intoxication, you were high, you were out of your mind, you were hallucinating. It wasn't real, is essentially what you're saying. And that's how really intelligent life would secretly study you, is through these states of intoxication, like the psychedelic plants. So essentially what he's saying is that the natural psychedelics are aliens hiding, and through the experience of the drug is them communicating with you and studying you and learning about you and telling you things.
Would that apply to any mind altering substance like alcohol, weed?
Yeah.
Well, do you experience beings and interdimensional contact on alcohol and weed?
Well, I mean, but applying this to your like a theory here, it's like if you're on alcohol, you know, you're numb, you don't. I mean, you know you exist, but you're just trying to numb your feelings and shit. So like,
well, you do have a point where you like don't remember anything if you get like so blasted. And...
So like, it could be like another like type of life form
alcohol, yeah.
trying to fuck with you on alcohol, like trying to just like steal your energy. But they're not like good beings.
Well, let's just say this intelligent life, if this is how it's happening, has chosen what we call natural psychedelics to communicate with us. And the way they communicate with us is by us accidentally or intentionally ingesting them. Because you can't escape a trip unless you fuck with the chemistry, you know. But when you take that dose, it's going to come and work with you. It's going to come and communicate with you and visit, you know. No matter the dose, but the high doses are where it seems to be able to, and that's interesting because it ties right up with just being higher because you've taken more. But it seems like the intelligent life hides in the high doses so that you can say it wasn't real. I was just high out of my mind. It wasn't anything.
So that they would never
reality.
really be discovered genuinely.
What's that?
So they would never be discovered.
Yes, which is, you know, claiming a kind of interesting idea that they're trying to remain hidden.
Yeah.
And that don't want to be, you know, but sometimes it seems like they don't want to be hidden. They want you to know what they are. They tell you they are wiser than you, no more than you. I couldn't share any personal experiences I've had with, you know, something telling me, you know, my fucking life story or what reality's about or something. But I have had strange experiences. One in particular, this woman said to me, then this is on DMT, she said, "You're on my level now." You know, now you can say, this is just a hallucination. This is just me talking to myself high out of my mind on a drug. But you can also see it as kind of like what you were saying, man, breaking down the boundaries between these different dimensions, whether it be spacious in our universe or dimensions, astral, you know, in a different plane of reality. But who's to say they're not just communicating with you? It's another form of intelligence communicating with you, and they have put themselves in these natural things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These natural things that are like anything else. You got a banana, you got a coffee plant, you got an apple, and then you have a psychedelic mushroom. You know, you try all of those, but then when you get to the psychedelic mushroom, this crazy thing happens, and we call it a drug. It gets you high. But if you've seen what happens, you know, it seems like a little more than that is going on. There's something a little weird about being really high on psychedelics. Something
kind
a
of
little
dissolves like the ego, then I guess.
I mean, I'll keep going.
What's that?
Well, I think that's kind of how it like dissolves the ego, because like when you trip and when you see, because when you trip and we get to like a certain experience, a certain dosage, like you kind of know like there's a higher power basically. Like you can learn that through psychedelics. So it kind of humbles you in a way, like when you kind of realize you're not like, you know, there's like a higher power. And sometimes when you're going through life, you just like think, oh yeah, like everything's like so much, you know, I don't know how else to say it, dumber than humans are.
Right.
Like other species and stuff around. Like we're like the highest being that we know. But when psychedelics, you can like kind of see that maybe we aren't. Or most intelligent.
People describe the ego dissolving experience in, you know, very darty ways, very weird ways sometimes that, you know, like, you forget who you are, you don't exist anymore, you die, your ego died, you know, all these different terms that you can't fucking grasp conceptually. But that LSD experience I was talking about, what I would define as that ego dissolving experience, which interestingly enough, I haven't experienced on DMT. A dissociation of the ego, a separation and dissolving of the ego. You could just say you merge with it immediately. But on this LSD experience, I didn't, per se, forget who I am. You know, I knew my name. I knew where I was. I know I'm on a drug. But there was this feeling that anything and everything I describe myself to be is not me. It's a lie. It's a basically an offering that doesn't hold up to truth. And it appeared to me that there was nothing in the universe that represents me besides the entire experience I'm having. And I was sitting there looking for who I am, what I am. And there was nothing there. There was just consciousness. There was just experience. And it was this feeling that you're pretending to be somebody psychologically. And when you're in one of those ego dissolving experiences, you see that who you are is just watching that. It's watching it all. It's experiencing it all the time. But you're so caught up in this story and psychological dialogue that you've forgotten that sensation of being everything. And that's what I think ego death is about, is, you know, it's not like you can't tell me where you are and what your name is. I mean, maybe in a certain type of experience. But it's more so a feeling, a sensation and recognition that who you experience yourself to be, what you experience yourself to be, is not who or what you think you are. And the thinking mind can't conceptualize you. You are beyond that. And that's what I think the ego death experience is about. If you guys have anything to add in on that idea, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Sounds crazy. I don't even know.
I mean, well...
Did you follow anything he said?
Yeah, about
Will,
ego death.
right?
What?
Your name's Will, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, we've never even been close to an ego death, so I can't even perceive
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you, is if you've even had what you'd call an ego death experience.
No, but I feel like I understand what you're talking about, not because I perceived it, but because, you know, I've been taking a Buddhism class, but, you know, we're assigned so many readings that it's hard for me to actually, like, do all the readings. And it's just, like, it's too difficult to keep up with, so it's, like, but most of it's, like, historical stuff. But the first couple weeks of the class, though, were cool because we're learning about the history, or not the history, but, like, who the Buddha was and what he taught, or whatever. And he would say, or he would teach that there is no self, whether that's a higher self or not. And I mean, when I really come down and think about it, like, if there's no self, and then that's just created by our own perceptions, and then, like, all this time when I was meditating, like, a couple months ago, you know, I was in, like, a good headspace, was just kind of going through some shit, and I had, like, this altar table, and I kept trying to call on my higher self, and I guess the reason why nothing ever happened...
Didn't it feel a little fishy?
It's a hoax. The whole higher self thing, it doesn't exist. But, like, I see, like,
That's
I respect
that you can see that.
I respect people that, like, believe that it exists, but, like, it's just, like, I don't know, I've come to my own subjective realizations, like, maybe, like, the Buddha is, like, objectively right, he's, like, 100% right, whatever, then
the Buddha is very, very foundational.
Yeah.
Very logically foundational, which is what grabbed me into Buddhism, is just it makes fucking complete sense.
Yeah.
Complete sense.
It makes complete sense that there's no self.
I kind of want to take a class on it then, because like I literally know nothing about like the Buddha and his ideas, but like the few conversations I've had with him, like it sounds really fascinating to me, like what he's saying about like the Buddha. And now one thing in specific, about like the truth, because everyone has like an opinion or like a view on the world or like some type of belief. When you like convince yourself that truth that you have is like the solidified one and only truth, like you're lost spiritually. And that resonated with me, but like that's the first time I'd ever like heard about his Buddhism class and was like, I kind of want to take it. So
Well, I mean, some of these Buddhist monks, like, their whole goal is to reach nirvana, which is enlightenment, and they dedicate and devote their entire lives to just meditating for like 16 hours a day, and then intermittent fasting and doing all that shit. So it's like they're basically, if you do that, you can reach enlightenment or like see these other dimensions just from meditation.
Not if they wound up a meditator.
True.
So they actually meditate for that long, like.
Well, some of
what
them
I
do.
mean?
Some of them meditate.
But I mean, all of them probably meditate like a fuck ton.
Yeah, meditation is an integral part of Buddhism.
Yeah, even through meditate usually once a day, but even through meditation, I don't get to like deep stages because people have described meditation like kind of similar to psychedelics.
Right, and I've never experienced that kind of stuff
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, me neither. Like the deepest I get is like just a thought train about like myself and like positive thoughts, and I'm kind of like in a, I don't even know how to say it. I'm like in a sleeping but awake kind of mixed. I don't even know how else to describe it.
You're being the observer when you think you're sleeping.
Yeah, something like that.
That is what psychedelics are like, but I think some people are more powerful spiritually than others, like at least in the term of like psychic abilities, because when you have these great psychic abilities, you can have these extreme experiences just from meditating. And we knew, well, we don't know this guy, but we did this thing in February where we talked in like a group of like people who use psychedelics and why they use them or whatever. And there's this one guy, he never used psychedelics before, but he said that he'll just be sitting down sometimes, he'll just have like these insane like psychedelic like experiences where they're just like, it's just like insane hallucinations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
I've heard a lot of reports of that kind of stuff going on.
I think
not just like, oh wait, I'm sorry, go
on.
Oh
no, I think people are able to be gifted and they have some special connection in some type of way to these like higher dimensions or realms that we were talking about earlier, that they have some special connection. It might not be, sitting down and having these crazy experiences without even doing anything. Sometimes it's like less than that. You have like great intuition, or you are able to like sit down and meditate for like an hour and then like have like DMT fractals or some shit. Like
it's what you've probably heard is, in the Buddhist terms, is, amount of karma and how high of an incarnation you're in, which, when there's these 10-year-olds getting lost in samadhi in India, it's probably, if we're going to pretend that the Buddhist ideas and the Hindu ideas are truth, it's probably reincarnated spirits that chose to come back and do more work, because you can do the most work in the human caste, is what I've heard from Buddhism. And the idea of there being chosen ones and higher beings, I mean, or they can do it and I can't. That's more so an ego trip. But if we're going along the lines of Buddhism, it's just what you're doing and where you're able to go with your consciousness. And when you see, a saint yogi over there lost in samadhi, you're in your psychology saying, I can't do this. I'll never be able to get there. And that's where you are karmically. you're somebody that can't do what they can.
Yeah.
And who they are karmically is somebody that does it, somebody that can, somebody that's working on it still, but starting to understand. And I want to tie this back into psychedelics, but there's still something about Buddhism I want to tie into them. But I feel like we can all do the work in terms of Buddhism, and there isn't chosen ones, there isn't higher beings. We are all just on a different level of karma or psychology, and we just need to accept that we need to work with that karma, and we can all be in those states, instead of pounding in that you can't do it, it's not real, all that stuff. But do you guys have anything else to say on that topic before I bring it back into psychedelics?
Yeah, for a while, like in my spiritual journey, I was like a believer in the chosen one, and then there's this guy we watched called Spiritual Soul on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
yeah, I watched you guys' video about that.
Yeah, and like we were on his we watched like all of his videos for a while, but he mentioned something about how like one thing he said and how he's like conspiracy theorist basically. So I kind of was like, yeah, I kind of realized that too, and it kind of made me stop watching him and stop taking everything he says so literally, and I kind of like changed my opinion on the chosen one. I don't think there are chosen ones, like you said.
If there is, we're all chosen.
Yeah.
Well, it's because like I think it's Mahayana Buddhism. Fuck, I can't even speak currently. But
Beautifulism.
Yeah, they basically, you have this Buddha energy within all of us, that we all have the potential to become a Buddha in our whatever lifetime. But, like you said, like as sentient beings, we accumulate karmic energy, so sometimes that could stump us in realizing our potential. And that's why you said, we come down here and we do the most work in this, like as a human in any incarnation, and that's because it's like humans, we suffer and we have to learn how to get through that suffering and bounce back.
Yeah. Who's to say that when any other animal, because we're smart beings and we personify every fucking thing we see, who's to say that a wild animal being eaten by a lion or something, yeah, there's pain, there's probably the emotions of panic and anxiety, but is there consciousness connected and attached to that pain and suffering?
Yeah.
To connect that back into psychedelics, this whole ego dissolving experience, the Buddhist teachings will teach you to get to these states of non-self, and the psychedelics seem to chemically force it upon you to an extent. If we're just going to be frank, they force this non-self on you, and that's a very similar thing between psychedelic states and Buddhist teachings. But the difference is, and I don't know how to describe why, but that's more so my last point, is basically these psychedelics give you the vibe of, okay, now that you're not worried about who you think you are, look at what we have to show you. Look at what's going on. Now that you're not caught up in your sense of self and you can just be, look at what's happening. Look what we have to offer. Look what we can do. Look what you can do. And it seems to go beyond just dissolving yourself and that being the point. That being the main point is these are here to break your ego down. They seem to have a deeper and more content-packed message beyond the you're not who you think you are sensation, which is really hard to get over. People get caught up in that and can never get over it as they continue to use the psychedelics. But when you go beyond, it's like the ego becomes irrelevant and there's this whole other thing going on. You know what I mean? And my last point being what these experiences say about reality. That's a that's a hardcore question, you know, because you guys have witnessed what happens. I've witnessed what happens. And to really like gist up what they have said about reality. They've taught me, and I guess you could say this is similar to Buddhism to an extent. They've taught me that reality is as good as mind. Reality is mind. Reality is consciousness. Reality can dissolve just by taking this substance. Reality can be completely transformed. You will not be here anymore on a high dose of a psychedelic, you know? And that was what makes me want to say, what does that say about reality? What is reality if taking this piece of paper or this pile of mushrooms or this brew of plants can completely transform and make you foreign to your experience, completely foreign to your experience? You know, what's going on, and why can that happen? Which is my main question, is why are we able to go into those states, and what does that, you know, mean? Why can we experience that? And like I said, I can't tell you why and what they mean and where they bring us. But there's some very, very profound things, you know, and they have a lot of messages that can be interpreted and teachings that can be understood through them. And I guess that's a good way for me to wrap up my points, because like I said, I can't tell you why we experience these things and why they occur in nature, but I can tell you they are just perfect and fucking mind-blowing, and they teach you a lot of things.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
Come on, Will, you gotta say something.
No, you said fuck.
Oh, wait, what?
I completely forgot what I was about to say.
Tell me the epitome of what psychedelics have taught you. And the epitome of why you think they're here to teach you that. Because that's revolved around what our question was. You know, why are they here to teach you what they've taught you?
That question is like always been really hard for me to answer.
Fuck yeah, it is.
But like why they're in nature, I think it just goes back to a point. They're just showing us like the purity of life, and make us appreciate everything that much more. I mean, that's like a simple answer, but like that's just
simple answers are the best.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It was hard to like stay involved because like you guys were going off, and I was like struggling to get on that like level of philosophy almost.
But you have to be like as deep as possible with it. That's how you keep going into the conversation. I mean, the simple answer is great, but it's like you can't be satisfied though. I'm not satisfied.
What's that?
I'm not satisfied with a simple answer like, yes, I think he's right.
You wouldn't like koans. You wouldn't like Zen koans.
Well, I mean, I think he's correct, but he's correct for only one instance of one purpose that mushroom or the LSD or DMT has in this universe or on this planet. So he's correct, but like at the same time, there's more that goes to it. So it's like,
more
for
ways
all
to
we
complexify it.
Yeah, for all we know, everything that we all said is correct. It's just all combined in one thing or one aspect.
Probably the best thing we could have said about what these things say to us and why they're here to say such a thing is to be pure, to be what you can, to be here,
to be the universe. I mean, what is here exactly?
To get on with it.
The universe. We are the universe. We're consciousness. We aren't a sense of self. Consciousness flows through all.
Simpleness sums things up, and that's why I really like your answer of, and I don't think it's because you don't have anything to say. I think it's because it's what they've taught you. You don't know what else to say because that's what they've taught you.
Yeah, basically.
Be pure, and that seems pretty understandable. That seems pretty workable and realistic of a teaching, you know. And it's not about okay, I'll be pure, but, you know, what about this, and this, you know? And using it as a therapist, you know, being able to see a summed up message like that,
Yeah, and they
is what I call integration. Understanding what it said, you know what I mean?
Yeah, through my, like, one bad trip, they, like, really helped me accept people for, like, who they are. And, like, you know, some people I would get irritated at their beliefs, but you got to understand that, like, they grow up from a different background, a different environment. Like, they have different hobbies, and they are introduced to different subjects. And like, when you're introduced to psychedelics and philosophy, like, you have to be able to accept other people, too, for, like, even if they don't get, like, to the point where they're taking psychedelics. And that's something that I didn't really do before. I would look down upon people for, you know, like, not respecting nature or spirituality and things like that, but they're going on their own path, so you just kind of have to accept that. I think that's what I learned from my, I wouldn't even call it a bad trip, I would call it a challenging trip, my LSD trip, which I don't even know if it was LSD, but it did feel kind of like a psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, like, I never really liked spiritual, so now I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I never liked that guy either. But.
I mean, that's...
You guys got some hella beef with this guy. I hadn't even watched a full video of this guy. I just saw that he's this guy that makes these videos, you know, basically. I didn't even pay attention to the content.
That's all we really had to say.
Is he completely delirious?
Yeah, he is delirious, but, I mean, I don't want to, like, get too off topic near the end, though. Then we can just stop recording, and then we can just talk normally after. But yeah, I mean, that's all we really had to say about psychedelics.
I think that was a good talk, man.
Yeah.
It was a very good talk. I summed it up way more than I thought I was going to be able to be.
Oh, I did too.
I was scared about this. I thought I was going to have a really hard time even talking about the questions that you're throwing.
I didn't think I was, like, going to have a hard time, but I thought it was going to be kind of difficult, but I had, like, a good feeling we're going to be able to get, like, pretty high along this topic.
It's a good topic.
And that has a double meaning.
And I hope we can do this again on some other topic. No matter what it's about.
Oh,
no
yeah,
matter what it's
definitely.
about, I feel like it'd go in any good direction because I've said it before, you guys are good people and you're doing good things, you know, and the path you're on and the things you're learning about are fucking awesome, you know. I love it. The fact that I can communicate with people like you guys, you know. You're the first people that I don't know and haven't met, and I'm talking with them through YouTube, you know what I mean? And that's really cool that I can be, this is why I made this channel.
Having God, I can voice crack till I'm bad.
That was cute.
Being friends with somebody that you never even met physically, just like, through technology. It's just
especially because
it would be far out to get together, guys. It really would.
For sure. Like, for him and I, like, he's the only person I've met who's, like, can kind of relate to, like, spirituality and his experience with psychedelics. Like, everyone, so it's like
many around.
Yeah, so it's like you're pretty much the second person that I've even talked to that, like, we can actually have a conversation about this with, you know.
Right. I mean, I fucking went to an ashram to try and find people that lived life like I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not many around, dude. It's sad, but you know, think of it as like throwing a bunch of rocks in the water. Eventually, you know, the rings are going to hit these other people. It's going to affect them. They're going to be a drop in the water. And eventually there's just going to be rings everywhere, affecting everybody. You know, I'm way over here in Maine doing what I do, affecting the people I do in whatever way I do. You guys are over doing your thing. And I bet you, without even realizing it, you're affecting people's lives more so than you think. You know what I mean? Through your channel, through the way you portray yourselves in society. You know, it's teaching people in very, very little subtle karmic ways. And I think it's helping. I think it's helping what we do.
I sure hope so.
What we do is helping.
I mean, I'm going to stop recording now, and then we can just chat after. Sounds good?
Yeah, that's
All right.
cool, man. Thank
Peace
you for the
out.
conversation. And thank you guys for watching if you watched the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.